This Excel demonstration is on the sample correlation coefficient, which we call R. So the Excel workbook that you want to open is Excel demonstration, correlation, and regression. So the first thing that we want to talk about is we want to talk about how to calculate R, that correlation coefficient. The most direct way is to use the Excel function CORREL, short for correlation, and we'll put the two arrays, our X values and our Y values, in there. Or we can use correlation under the data analysis tool pack. So that's what we're going to do with this set of data. Over the past several years, the college deans have been interested in the relationship between the number of absences and a student's final grade. To test this relationship, a statistics student randomly selects 7 students and obtains the following information. So I have student A, B, C, D, E, F, G, then number of absences, and their final grade in the class. So I want to come up with a correlation coefficient. So I put R equals already over here. And then we're going to do it the two different ways. The first way is to use the Excel function. So we can come in here and we can click function. We can say correlation. Go. And it's this very first one on the list, and we'll say OK. Then it wants the array. The number of absences are X values. And then in the second array, the final grade in the class in percent. And then we'll say OK. So it returns the value negative 0.94422. Now we want to round our R to 3 decimal places. So we'll come and we'll click on the value. I'll say home. And we'll go down to 3 decimal places. And that's what I would finally report, negative 0.944. So now let's talk about the data analysis tool pack. So I'm going to go into data analysis, and we'll pick, so in our list, remember they're in alphabetical order, we'll say correlation, and I'll say OK. So our input range is everything. We want to set it up X and Y together. So notice when we did the function CORREL, we input the X values, comma, inputting the Y value array. When we use this function, we're going to highlight X and Y together as the input range. And we want to group them together in columns, where column D is our X value and column E is our Y value. So now let's come down here and let's pick an output range. So I'm just going to put it below our other function just so that we can compare what our output, what it's going to look like. So I'm going to click here and I'm going to say OK. So when you use this function under the data analysis tool pack, it gives us an output that's an output table, a correlation matrix that shows the value of the correlation coefficient for each possible pair of measured values. So in this very first cell, that's column A versus column 1 versus column 1. So that's X versus X. So it's got perfect linear correlation, and that's why it's returning the value of 1. In this one, it's column 1 versus column 2, X versus Y. The correlation of X with respect to Y, and it's negative 0.94422, which is exactly the same correlation that we got up here when we use the other function. and we'd round it to its 3 decimal places and we'd get the same thing. In this last piece of the array over here, it's column 2 versus column 2, or y versus y, which also has perfect linear correlation, and that's why we see a value of 1 in that location in the matrix. So either one of these two ways would be a valid way to calculate your R when you need your correlation coefficient. Remember to round the correlation coefficient to 3 decimal places.